Okay, let's take a look at the box office from this past week. Total domestic box office was about $74.5 million, which was a very small jump, 1% jump, which is interesting because the week before was like a 0% change, so it's basically been around this figure for like 3 weeks straight, which I don't really know what to make of it. I think that's a mixture of the films coming out not opening super big, but also the films that are already out holding pretty well. Notably, though, eagle-eyed viewers will look at this list here. There's a film missing. Or not so much missing, but a film that has left the top 10, Mufasa, The Lion King. I forget how many weeks this was in the top 10. Let me I think I have it written down here. It was in the top 10 for 12 weeks. So essentially 3 months. For a film that everyone basically said was mid, that's pretty impressive. So we salute you, Mufasa the Lion King. The king is dead, long live the king. Okay, but anyway, looking at this actual week here. Biggest new opening was Novocaine, the kind of action comedy starring Jack Quaid, basically about a guy who has the inability to feel pain, and he goes after. It's kind of like a John Wick kind of thing. Actually fell within the projections, which is good, right? So it brought in $8.8 million for the week. It was projected to make around 6 to 12. I put it around a 9 million target, so it just barely fell below my target. But at least it actually made it into the projections, right? This was, most of its box office was made domestically, right? So worldwide only made like an additional a little under 2 million, but it was made for $18 million. So, while not catastrophic, it opens in the red, which is not great, but it is what it is. And, this, depending on the reception of this, I haven't actually been keeping tabs on this. I'm curious what it's been getting. Let's see on Letterboxd. It has a 3.3, so not great. But if it has any kind of longevity, it should be able to maybe make that back. And even if it doesn't, it seems tailor-made to do well on streaming, right? Also opening this week, Steven Soderbergh's Black Bag. I'm opening at 4th place. Also making into the projections and actually exceeding my target, which is good, right? So made about 7.6 million. I had said it was going to make around 5 to 10 with the 7 million target. Though similar deal with Novocaine, but even worse, this was made for $60 million. It's only made about 12 million worldwide. So that's a much bigger negative return. So, Steven Soderbergh's movies are kind of hit or miss, at least in terms of their commercial success. So, it still remains to be seen if this catches on, if it kind of has like enough of like a niche audience to kind of help make up the difference here. But, unlike Novocaine, I don't think it has, I don't even know what Black Bag is even about. Whereas with Novocaine, I had a general understanding. And you might be saying, this disqualifies you from even talking about this. Well, I have a full-time job. If you want me to be an expert on every single thing coming out, you should subscribe and send to your friends so I can monetize this channel and quit my job. But until then, I think it actually speaks to, it's good that I'm not as tuned in as I maybe used to be. Because, again, it speaks to the fact, I at least have some kind of vague idea what Novocaine was about. Whereas Black Bag, if I don't know, the average person isn't going to know, right? I really feel like I haven't seen much, if at all, in terms of advertising for this movie, right? The bigger movie, and big in terms of at least brand recognition, the bigger movie releasing this week was The Day the Earth Blew Up, a Looney Tunes movie. This opened at number 9. Actually fell within the projections, right? Which is good. Projected to make around 2 to 5 million. I put the target around 3 to make just a little bit over that, around 3.1, 3.2. This was a movie kind of like Coyote versus Acme, where it seemed like maybe it wasn't going to come out, but the Looney Tunes gods prevailed, right? But it's still, right as of right now, a big financial concern, considering, okay, worldwide it's made a little under 4 million, but it was made for 15. So it was already a cheap movie, but maybe this is why Warner Brothers was reluctant to release it. But I would also argue, it's almost like a self-fulfilling prophecy, because, like, why, I feel like I have not seen any marketing for this. Like, you could have made more, it could have made more money. You just kind of didn't really give it a chance at all, right? So, this is still very much in the red, but I think a lot of people, myself included, even if I haven't seen this and I don't, plan to see this immediately, the fact it was even released, I think, is a win, right? But at the same time, if those are our wins, completed movies getting released, the bar is really low, right? And then we also have The Last Supper opening, just barely squeaking into the top 10. This was projected to make around, like, $500K to, like, $1.5 million. It actually exceeded all of that and nearly doubled that top-end projection, bringing in about $2.8 million for the weekend. This is exactly what it sounds like. It's a religious Christian film depicting The Last Supper. I don't have any budgetary numbers on this, so no idea how this actually did in terms of the ROI, but nevertheless, it's it speaks to the American kind of zeitgeist right now, and the state of the box office, that this movie could make it into the top 10. Because I had also, in my last episode, when I was talking about predictions or projections, I talked about A24's Opus. That didn't even make it into the top 10. So, the fact that this was able to beat out, like, based off the reviews, a fairly, kind of solid, if uninspired, horror thriller film. But from A24, featuring Ayo Edebiri, I always mispronounce her name, I apologize. The fact that didn't make it into the top 10, but this did, I think is really interesting. I'm not sure why it's interesting, I'm not sure what the takeaway is, but it feels of note, right? Continuing into its second week, Mickey 17 had a pretty decent percent drop, only a 25% drop, which, is really, really strong for a movie in its second weekend, especially in the modern box office landscape, where you usually have 40, 50, sometimes even 60 or 70% drops. So the fact that this held fairly decently, I think is hopefully going to spark good word of mouth. Because the movie has been getting really good reviews. We actually have a review up on cinemancuso.substack.com written by, my very good friend and contributor to the newsletter, Jacob Boblett. He really liked it. So, this is not, all in all, it's not that surprising. Worldwide, it's made a little over 90 million, but here's the issue, is that it was made for 118 million, right? So, it is still in the red, though that being said, worldwide, it's making a killing, at least in terms of just dwarfing the domestic results. So there's a scenario where if this could just keep holding because of good word of mouth, it'll cross that initial budgetary number. Now the only thing is will it be able to double the budget, right? Because as you Cinnamon Cuso viewers know, that ideally you want to double the budget to actually break even, because the budget does not include things like marketing and advertising. So, the marketing and advertising is not always the same as the regular budget number, but just as a good rule of thumb, it's good to try to shoot to double the budget. So, will this cross that 118 million threshold? I think yes. Will it double the budget? It's still far too early. It's far too early to know. Holding its second place spot, we also have Captain America: Brave New World in its fifth week. So really interesting that this movie is still holding on, considering the very mid response. It seems like just kind of your run-of-the-mill MCU movie. And as much as I love Anthony Mackie, his character, it was kind of like a failure to launch. Like audiences just didn't really seem to care enough about him as a leading character. And I don't think it's because he's black. Again, that's easy for me to say because I'm not black, but Black Panther did gangbusters, right? So I don't know if it's fair to say, well, this movie underperformed because it has a black leading man. That might be part of it, but I think the larger issue is just formulaic, mediocre, generic Marvel superhero movies, right? But it's been kind of holding, and it actually, speaking of doubling the budget, it's doubled its budget. So, this is probably being seen as a failure for Marvel internally because it's not doing these huge numbers that they used to be able to expect, but now at the very least hope for from their movies. But so by that metric, if you're comparing it to something like Deadpool and Wolverine or like pre-Endgame numbers, this is kind of a disappointing ROI. But nevertheless, it could say that it's at least profitable. Unlike a lot of these movies. I mean, like looking here, half these movies, it's like literally half and half. Almost, right? Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. More of these movies are in the red. More of these movies are in the red right now than are in the green in this top 10. So at least it can be one of the ones in the green, right? Paddington Peru, similar deal. Holding on to its 5th place spot, now in its 5th week. Brought in a little under $4.5 million. Again, only a 19% drop, so it's holding pretty well. Look at the legs. Look at the legs on Paddington, 3.23. That, for newer viewers, the leg's essentially a number we derive by taking the total domestic box office and dividing it by the largest domestic weekend. So the idea being that you're not just making all your money in one weekend and then word of mouth gets around that your movie sucks and then the numbers just plummet, right? So the higher this number, the more staying power, theoretically, the movie has. And again, similar to something like Mickey 17, this has made most of its money outside of the United States and is also profitable. So again, this makes sense. Paddington has always had its fans in the United States, but it's not a cultural touchstone the way, something like Winnie the Pooh might be. I understand that's also British, right? But at least for Americans, it feels, since it was made by Walt Disney, like the movie, which is what made it famous in the United States. Or at least, like, catapulted it, I suppose, maybe. Paddington does not have that brand recognition. Perhaps now in 2025, it's better. But back when that first movie came out over a decade ago, I mean, I remember seeing the trailer going like, am I supposed to know what Paddington is? Like, I was getting the sense from the trailer that I was supposed to be impressed that this was a Paddington movie. And I was like, well, what the hell is Paddington? I don't even know. Also holding really well is Dogman. So dropping from 6th to 7th place, but in 7th week. It's 7th week, bringing in $4.2 million for the week. Only an 8% drop. An 8% drop. Again, this is speaking to, I can't tell looking at these numbers for this top 10 if this is a testament to the strength of these films or a testament to the weakness of the box office right now. Because again, these are not movies that Paddington and Peru got much better reviews, but Dogman and especially Captain America are not getting these glowing reviews. But I think it's a matter of just competition, and it's all about market placement, right? Like what is Dogman competing with, right? Perhaps now the Looney Tunes movie, but again, most people I feel like don't even know that this movie exists, let alone came out. What is Captain America competing with? What is Paddington competing with? This is a very diverse, I've been saying this over the past couple of weeks, this is a very diversified top 10. Dogman also profitable, to over 200% ROI. And speaking of really good ROIs, look at The Monkey, Osgood Perkins' follow-up to Longlegs, which itself was an indie darling that didn't get great reviews, but just had such good box office success, at least in terms of ROI. The fact that the film was fairly cheap to make, only, I think it was like under $10 million. And it ended up something like 1,000+% return. This is shaping up to be something, if not similar, but it's a similar idea, right? Only made for $11 million. So when it makes $50 million, that doesn't seem like a lot compared to Captain America's nearly $400 million worldwide box office. But pound for pound, dollar for dollar, The Monkey is making more money for, I think it's Neon, right? So, Neon's on a roll, right? Because didn't Neon do Anora, which of course just won Best Picture? Neon, yeah, right. So it's definitely, I've always felt, and I've said this a gajillion times, so I'm definitely gonna sound like a broken record. I wish Hollywood just made more smaller, cheaper movies. A, because I think it would make for better and more creative films, and it would be better for the art form. But even just from a business standpoint, diversifies your investment, right? And that's the reason why they're called tentpole movies, because in a tent, there's only a couple tent poles, and if you knock one tent pole out, the whole tent falls down, right? So all it's gonna take is like 2 or 3 really big blockbuster failures to tank one of these studios. And it's gonna happen. Or they're gonna learn. Right? It's not, but if they don't change their course, that is the inevitable conclusion of where they're gonna end up. And looking ahead to this weekend, the big movie is going to be the live-action remake of Snow White, projected to make around 37 to 70, so a really big range. That upper end is more attributed to one of my sources. I think was kind of like an older projection, so I think now the projection is moving moving closer to that bottom, that lower end of these projections. I'm going to put my target around 48, though. If I was really putting money on this, I would probably put it even lower. But I'm gonna stick to 48. I'm gonna be a little bit optimistic, for no reason other than, it doesn't hurt to be optimistic. Then we also have Alto Nights. This is a Robert De Niro led film where Robert De Niro plays 2 characters, Vito Genovese and Frank Costello. I'm not sure why he's playing both of them. I don't think they're meant to be twins. I guess it's like an artistic thing. But don't they know moviegoers are stupid? They won't understand that you can do that in theater. You can't do that in a movie. People will get confused. It's projected to be around 3 to 7. So again, not very big. I'm going to put the target just right in the middle, around 5. And then we have Magazine Dreams. This is the Jonathan Majors film that came out, I think it was Sundance, that had a lot of buzz. Sundance 2023. So we're talking like over 2 years ago now. And then a couple months after that, because presumably it would get picked up and it was picked up. I think it was by Fox Searchlight, now just Searchlight. But then of course all of his career imploded. Disney dropped him, and they also basically quietly canceled this movie. It was then picked up by a different distributor, so now it's finally coming out. But again, very small opening, only around 2 to 5 million. I'm gonna put the target closer to that upper end, around 4. Wow, what an interesting story. I'm sure you have some thoughts about the topic, so comment below, let me know what you think. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really, really helps people find the channel and makes me feel all warm inside. Until next time, I'm Peter Mancuso. Peace out.